Greetings. Allow me to share something from the topic antinomianism. Actually, the subject is part of the Christian ethics under Sir Melvin Sagala. Greetings to our teacher, Sir Melvin Sagala. Now, guys, friends, brothers, and sisters, I'll be sharing to you this afternoon the topic about antinomianism. Now, what is antinomianism? Here, antinomianism actually comes from the Greek word anti and nomos. Anti, which means against, nomos means law. So basically, antinomianism comes from the Greek word antinomos, which means anti-law. So here, antinomianism is basically from its background, which literally means against or instead of law, against the law, holds that there are no binding moral law. For them, seems that everything is relative. Okay, so at least you have not a background of antinomianism and even the meaning of the antinomianism. Then here in the ancient world, we have actually development. We have the movement that develops or contributes something to the development of the antinomianism in ancient world. We have here the Prosism. Next is the Hinduism or Hindunist, and also the skepticism. Now, allow me to share antinomianism, not to have a broad area of study, but just to focus on the antinomianism in the modern world. Okay, so here we have the relativism, as what I've mentioned. The relativism in the modern world had grown in its manifest, have grown and manifest three movements. So we have here the relativism, which is part of the antinomianism, that develop it. This kind of movement develop and has three branches. We have here the utilitarianism. Then next is the existentialism, and also the evolution. Part of that is actually the evolution. The evolution actually also believing the sounds no law, binding law, especially the moral law though. Here, each of these contributes to each own way of antinomianism. So allow me to discuss first the utilitarianism as part of the relativism. Now, because according to antinomianism, no law at all, but all is relative. So here, part of that relativism, as what they believe, is the utilitarianism. According to Jeremy Bentham, one of the author and a great philosopher in 1832, in ancient Hinduism, laid down is actually an ancient Hinduism, laid down the principle that one should act so as to produce the greatest good for the greatest number. So the very reason why someone is born is to just to produce the greatest good for the greatest number of persons. So this is something called, or this is sometimes called utilitarian calculus. Again, this is actually sometimes called utilitarian calculus. He understood, Jeremy understood this in the qualitative sense of what brings the greatest account of the pleasure and the least amount of pain. Now, actually, in each of this, we have a response. Here, I put a response. In response to it, we have to notice that the result alone do not justify, and we have to understand that the result alone is not actually a sufficient justification. It's not to just justify an action. When the result come, we must still ask whether they are the good result or bad ones. The end does not justify the means. The end does not justify the means. The means must justify themselves. So I think I think it is so clear to each one of us, and I believe it's very clear. Next one, we have a further response. On the other hand, John Stuart used the utilitarian calculus only to understand the qualitative sense. He believed that some pleasure were of a higher quality than others. It all depends on what brings about the greatest pleasure, and this may differ from the person to bring place to place. Okay, so next here we have the existentialism. What is existentialism? So I have here an example. Even the free choices needed to the context, we have to understand that. The context of the structures, absolute freedom for two more persons is impossible. For one person's choices to do to others what they choose not to have done to them, then the unavoidable conflict emerge. This is why the law is necessary. So I don't think that law is not necessary. Is the response of this existentialism is this. This is why actually the law is necessary to structure free choice, thus maximizing the freedom of all without the negative freedom of actually anyway. Freedom of all without negating the freedom of any. Then here we have the next one is the evolutionism. Here is the thing. After Darwin, we believe that the foundation of that evolution is actually Darwin in 1882. Men like Herbert Spencer expanded evolution into the cosmic theory. Remember that it's not Darwin, but it's Spencer that expanded evolution into the cosmic theory. In act, others such as another person here is T.H. Huxley in 1885 and Julian Hawkins in 1975 worked out evolutionary ethics. So these persons, these shall we say great persons, contribute or develop the evolution into cosmic theory. The central tenet is that whatever aids the evolutionary process is right, and whatever hides it is. So actually we have the response of it, and the response would be something like this. My response. Do you need the response? Here, the first one we have same standard outside the evolutionary process must be assumed in order to measure it. Otherwise, we could not know whether the change is not for better or worse. So, for example, in evolution, they cannot prove the actual evidence of, shall we say, the observable evidence, touchable evidence even today, because they cannot really prove it. Now here, in this process, is a final perfect, is final or perfect. There must be some standard beyond it by which we can measure the progress. Otherwise, we do not know the difference between mere change and real progress. Progress of that, according to them, the process of the natural development of cells that takes time. So that's actually the response. Now allow me to share to you the summary and conclusion. Antinomianism is radical form of ethical relativism. It denies not only that there are any valid ethical absolutes, but also that are any binding moral laws. For example, example of that binding law